Sports, a place where many athletes find success.
This is likely the final play that matters. End zone wide open. What a night for Mike Williams.
But where there's a winner, there has to be a loser.
He came a long way. You hear me? Come here, I love you, bro. Yeah.
It's one thing to watch the game, but another to analyze it. Let's talk about the numbers. You ready?
YouTube, what's going on, man? Back at it again with another video. It's your boy Numbers Fan Jay, and of course today we got the AFC North 2020 predictions for you. But before we get into those, just want to remind you guys of our 2019 predictions as well as the final standings for the AFC North in 2019. So that being said, the predictions 2019 for the AFC North, my predictions were Ravens at 1, Browns at 2, Steelers at 3, and Bengals at 4. Final standings ended up being Ravens at 1, Steelers at 2, Browns at 3, Bengals at 4. Now, I put the Browns at 2 last year because of all the additions they made in the offseason. Of course, a lot of people were saying they were going to win the Super Bowl. Clearly, this didn't happen, and I knew it wouldn't happen. So I wasn't going to say that they were even going to win the division. I didn't even have that in my head. But I did get 1 and 4 right. So hopefully this time around we can get everything right. Let's go ahead and get into it, man. Starting, of course, at the bottom with my cellar dwellers for 2020. Returning, the Cincinnati Bengals. Returning to the bottom. They finished 2-14 in 2019. The Bengals finished 1-5 in divisional games. Their only win in divisional games being Week 17 against the Browns. 2019, offensively, the Bengals were 26 in total offense, 25th in rush, and 30th in points per game. They had the 9th most sacks in the league, and they tied for the 6th most giveaways in the NFL. 2019, defensively, they were 29th in total defense, last versus the run, 25th in points allowed, 26th in sacks, and tied for 28th in takeaways. Overall, they tied for 29th in turnover differential at -14. So this team constantly gave the ball away. They constantly could not get it back on defense. And they gave away points without scoring. So needless to be said, they weren't a good team by the 2-14 record they've shown. Personnel-wise, their losses were Tyler Eifert, who was once considered to be one of the better tight ends in the league. Drake Kirkpatrick, we remember them drafting him in the first round, hoping for him to be a lockdown. Did not turn out so well. And Andy Dalton, who was the starting quarterback for this Cincinnati Bengals football team. So who did they add? Of course, in free agency, they added Trey Waynes at corner, Von Bell at safety from the Saints. They also drafted, draft-wise, Joe Burrow. Now, this is the guy that they tanked for, all right? We're going to say that they tanked this year to get Joe Burrow. They knew they were going to get a great quarterback coming out. His quarterback class looked nice. They said, all right, guys, let's throw some games. They also drafted T. Higgins, wide receiver out of Clemson. And they drafted Logan Wilson, linebacker out of Clemson as well. So the bottom line for the Cincinnati Bengals, this roster's not built for a 2021 Super Bowl. Let's just go ahead and get that out the way. This was not, all right, let's tank and then next year we'll be in the Super Bowl. No, this is a long-term kind of trust the process like Philadelphia 76ers type of thing they got going on. They're rebuilding very clearly. They have Bills-type expectations for this team. And I say that because nobody expected the Bills to make the playoffs last year. They made the playoffs, and now the Bills have higher expectations the next year. Similar to the Bills, this team is not expected to make the playoffs. If they do, that's a plus, but I don't see that happening anytime soon. Right? They also have no coaching changes, so 6 wins would be kind of acceptable for this roster, right? Right. So, Bengals will be returning at 4th. Don't expect a lot for them this year. Coming in at number 3 in the AFC North 2020 will be the Cleveland Browns. In 2019, the Browns went 6-10. Baker Mayfield did not look like the answer. This team was 3-3 in the division in 2019. Offensively, this team wasn't in top 10 in any category. They 7th most giveaways in the NFL. Did not take care of the ball very well. They just didn't have anywhere to say, hey, we did good in this area. They didn't have that. Defensively, this team was 7th versus the pass, so that's a plus, but they were 30th versus the run. So kind of hot and cold on defensive end, if you want to look at it that way. They finished 26th in turnover differential at -8. So quite clearly, like the Bengals, they struggled taking care of the football on offense, and they struggled getting it back on defense. That's always a recipe for disaster. Losses personnel-wise will be, only really notable loss will be Kareem Hunt, and he's a restricted free agent. So that's really the only notable loss. Additions, Jack Conklin, Titans offensive tackle, played pretty well for them, started every game that he played. Carl Joseph, I guess, could be another notable name there. It was 2016 first rounder. Didn't turn out to be that star that we thought he would be. If y'all remember, he played for West Virginia in college. And he was one of those guys that he found a way to hit guys hard, but he's not a big guy. So it was kind of weird. But anyway, moving forward, they also got Case Keenum in free agency. Big additions for me, in my opinion, would be Austin Hooper, great tight end out of Atlanta, as well as Andrew Sendejo. We talked about him being a big loss for the Vikings, and he's a big gain for the Browns defensively. More importantly, they have a whole new coaching staff pretty much. Head coach Kevin Stefanski, offensive coordinator Alex Van Pelt, and defensive coordinator Joe Woods all are coming in new. Fresh blood in there. Draft-wise, the Browns drafted Jedrick Wills Jr., offensive tackle out of Alabama. Grant Dale Pitt, the safety out of LSU. Third round, they had 2 draft picks there. Jordan Elliott, defensive tackle out of Missouri. And Jacob Phillips, linebacker out of LSU. Bottom line for the Cleveland Browns is that they cleaned house in coaching. This was probably the most important thing. This roster was way too talented to only have 6 wins in 2019. Offensive line got some big help. Like I said, they drafted Jedrick Wills, and they also added Jack Conklin. So 2 brand new tackles for Baker Mayfield. He doesn't have any excuses on the O-line this year. Baker Mayfield is the question. He's really the key to how far this team can go offensively. Last year, he threw 25. Well, he had 25 total touchdowns, 21 interceptions. No fumbles. No fumbles. And this Browns team is going to be relying on him yet again. So, I don't know. I don't know that they could actually get very far with Baker Mayfield. But we will see. He did have a sophomore slump. His freshman year. His rookie year was a lot better than his sophomore year in the league. So, we'll see what the Cleveland Browns can do. Moving on to number 2. I think y'all already know who number 2 is. It's the Pittsburgh Steelers. 2019, the Steelers finished 8-8, 3-3 in the division. Big Ben got hurt, and they still finished 8-8. Mike Tomlin almost won Coach of the Year for this. So, very, very gritty team, finding a way to stick around and be sort of relevant without their starting quarterback. Not many teams can get that accomplished. Offensively, 2019 for the Steelers, they finished 30th in total offense, 31st in passing, 29th in rushing, 27th in points per game. The 9th fewest sacks allowed, though, so that is a plus. They tied for the 5th most giveaways in the league. Defensively, they finished 5th in total defense, 3rd versus the pass, 6th in points allowed, 1st in sacks, and 1st in takeaways. This team had 54 sacks and 38 takeaways. That is spectacular. Can't explain how big that is, especially for a team without a quarterback. That's how they won those 8 games. The losses personnel-wise, Ryan Shazier. Can you imagine what that defense would look like if Ryan Shazier actually played? with this defense that they have now, that would be, oh, that's nasty. That's nasty to think about. He retired, of course, with that spinal injury. Is not something you want to try to come back and play a full contact sport in. He is walking again, so always great news to hear a player that got injured that severely to be back on his feet again. Great for him. Great for him. Ramon Foster retired as well, the starting guard for the Steelers. He's out of there. So 2 holes there. It doesn't seem like Shazier is a huge hole, but he's better than any linebacker they have right now. So in my opinion, it's a hole. But anyway, additions personnel-wise, Minkah Fitzpatrick, of course, being that trade mid-season for a first-round pick to the Dolphins. A lot of people thought that a first-round pick was too much. He came in and maybe is the final piece to this defense. Eric Ebron, also a huge addition in the offseason, coming in at tight end. I think this is the best tight end pickup they've had. He might be the best tight end they've had since Heath. Draft-wise, Pittsburgh Steelers didn't have a first-round draft pick, of course, because that trade to get Minkah Fitzpatrick. So they started in the second round. They drafted Chase Claypool, wide receiver out of Notre Dame, Alex Highsmith, defensive end out of Charlotte. Now, the bottom line for the Pittsburgh Steelers is this. They have not made any coaching changes despite finishing 8-8 and missing the playoffs. Also, they hadn't picked up a new quarterback. They didn't draft a new quarterback. They didn't pick up a new quarterback in free agency. This is a statement for the Pittsburgh Steelers front office. They believe that Ben Roethlisberger is still the answer to this team. They think if Ben was in there, they would have made the playoffs. Otherwise, they would have picked up another quarterback, or they would have made a coaching change, right? This team is confident in their roster right now. Don't know if they'll make the playoffs next year because I don't know how much Big Ben has left. But that is yet to be seen. Him just getting hurt all the time is enough for me to say that this team is not going to go anywhere anytime soon. But that's just my opinion. Of course, that only leaves one team left, the Baltimore Ravens. Baltimore Ravens finished 14-2, 5-1 in the division, and of course went 1-done versus the Titans in the playoffs, their second 1-done in a row. Now, this Ravens team was plus 249 in point differential, and they were pretty much your dream team. When you think of a football team, you want them to be dominant on both sides of the ball. That's not very common. It's very, very rare. This team did it for 16 games. Although they didn't show up in the playoffs, they did it all season. Now, 2019 offensively, this team, the Ravens, finished second in total offense, 27th in passing, but that is because they finished first in rushing with 206 rush yards per game, which is unreal. It's Madden-like almost. First in points per game. Now, that alone should tell you if they're running the ball 206 yards per game and they're still first in scoring, there's not much that needs to change, right? Fifth in fewest sacks allowed, fifth fewest giveaways. This offense was just so tough. Lamar Jackson, how crafty he was and how elusive he was, just unbelievable. So hard to tackle, along with Mark Ingram in the backfield, but we'll get into all that. Defensively for the Ravens, they finished fourth in total defense, sixth versus the pass, fifth versus the run, third in points allowed. 21st in sacks wasn't that great, but they tied for 7th in takeaways. Overall, they finished 6th in turnover differential at plus 10, which is awesome. Losses personnel-wise, Marshall Yanda, retired, the guard, Pro Bowl guard. Tony Jefferson was released. Of course, he got replaced after he got hurt. Just one of those instances where you go down, the guy that steps up actually seems like he can play a little bit better or he has a higher ceiling than you, so you lost your job. It's just the way of the business. Domonta Peko, the defensive tackle, was also released in free agency. Additions personnel-wise, Calais Campbell. He was traded for a 2020 fifth-round draft pick. and is a huge pickup on that defensive line. Hopefully he can help them generate more sacks in the pass rushing department. Draft-wise for the Baltimore Ravens, drafted Patrick Queen, the inside linebacker out of LSU, which I read he was the defensive MVP for the championship Tigers. And that's unbelievable because they didn't pick until, I believe, the 29th pick in the draft. The defensive MVP for the championship winning team isn't picked until the 29th? That's crazy. J.K. Dobbins was their next pick, running back out of Ohio State. We'll talk about that. Justin Madubuike, hopefully I got that name right, defensive tackle out of Texas A&M, was also drafted by the Baltimore Ravens. The bottom line, this Ravens team has the best roster, has the best coach, and they drafted well. They drafted for the future. Man, I say that because they drafted inside linebacker. We know this defense is already top 5, top 10 in pretty much every category outside of pass rush. That's a future pick right there. They want this young guy to come in and learn. They draft J.K. Dobbins, like I said. They still have Mark Ingram.
Come see me. I'm right here in Beemore outside the bank. If you got an issue with that, come see me. I'm about that. Big trust. Woo, woo.
Mark Ingram will be turning 30, though. He's turning 30. Gus Edwards, free agent next year. So they're preparing to keep this thing rolling. They're committed to this running game. And they drafted well with already having a good roster. One of the best secondaries in the NFL. They still got Lamar Jackson. They got a young core on offense. Hollywood Brown and those guys. I don't see this Ravens team coming down from the top of the AFC North anytime soon. Unless something, tragic happens. Unless tragedy hits. Hopefully not. But that is my predictions for the AFC North 2020. Thank y'all for watching, man. Leave a like, leave a comment, subscribe, hit that notification bell. If you're new, thank you for your view. I appreciate you. It's your boy Jay. We out of here.